I'm Simon Longstaff and welcome to Sydney and the City Recital Hall, Angel Place. What we're going to be debating here tonight, that same-sex marriage should not be legalised. And we have a stellar panel for you tonight. Arguing for the motion, Professor Nick Tonti-Filippini. He's joined by Professor Anna-Marie Jargos. Arguing against the motion is the Lord Mayor of the City of Sydney, Clover too, and she's joined by Mark Textor. Would you please welcome them? Opening the case for the proposition is Professor Nick Tonti-Filippini.
Thank you for making me welcome tonight. I'm very honoured to be part of this panel and a part of this style of debate. In what I have to say tonight, it's obviously a highly sensitive topic. I really don't want to offend anybody. I know that the side of the debate that I take risks doing that. And I want to make the point very strongly that we all have friends and family who are in the gay community, and we love them. I'm also a Christian, and as a Christian I want to acknowledge, and not everybody agrees with me, but as a Christian I want to acknowledge that wherever there's true love, God is present. We're talking about a significant change in what marriage means. We're taking the words union of man and woman and replacing it, as Simon has indicated. That's a huge change to what marriage means. The phrase I want to use is biological marriage. What's at stake is the biological reality of the two-in-one flesh union between a man and a woman, and its importance to children. The biological marriage establishes rights and duties in relation to children because the couple is bound to each other and to the child at every level: genetically, gestationally, nurturing, social, physical and spiritual. Biological marriage is not just a relationship of mutual benefit to the spouses. Biological marriage rather is love by design that is fruitful and outreaching. In other words, it's not just about romance. It's about forming those relationships to those children, and it involves mutual and unilateral obligations of motherhood and fatherhood that have a biological origin. And that's why the law provides for marriage. It provides for the celebration of a biological marriage, provides for gender difference in this context, and recognises the uniquely generative power of the union between a man and a woman. And the children come into existence as an equal third party to that union, an embodiment of their love for each other. As a consequence, marriage confers security and identity on the children. The possibility of children is the crowning glory of a biological marriage. The search for identity of and access to natural parents by donor offspring is testament to the importance of that biological parenthood. A same-sex relationship is incapable of generating children. Where children exist in a same-sex household, they always have a stepfather or stepmother. Unfortunately, gay marriage is biologically, and I would say according to God's design, an impossibility. And changing the law would rob us of the institution of marriage and make marriage no longer recognised for what it is, as a love that goes beyond romance. It's ironic, when we are aware of how much children have suffered from absent fathers in all sorts of ways, that the proposed law is no longer to honour, no longer to recognise the role of biological parents. This process of redefinition would in fact be a cause of great injustice to children, denying them their right to know, to have access to, and be nurtured by their biological mother and father, rights recognised in international law. We are in danger of creating another stolen generation. Thank you.
Clover Moore is the Lord Mayor of the City of Sydney and an independent member of the New South Wales Parliament. Would you please welcome her to the stage?
Thank you, Simon, and good evening, everyone. And before presenting my argument, I want to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, the traditional custodians of our land, and pay my respects to their elders both past and present, and note their ongoing struggle for rights and recognition. I want to say first of all that I oppose the statement that same-sex marriage should not be legalised. I strongly believe that same-sex couples should have the same rights and legal protections as heterosexual couples, and recent surveys show that the majority of Australians share this view. Same-sex marriage will happen, it's just a matter of when. You have to ask the question in an age when technological change is driving us into the future. Why social change takes so long, and why is it so tortuous? There is a wide acceptance that gay men and lesbians can and do have loving, caring and lifelong relationships, and it is beyond time that the law reflected this fact. And so what is the history of this law? Our legal definition of marriage, which says that marriage is between a man and a woman to the exclusion of all others for life, is from a 19th century divorce court ruling in a polygamy case. But legal rulings can and should be overturned or updated with new information and evidence, and as community values change. But up until now, national leaders have kept marriage locked in a 19th century paradigm. Marriage is about more than legal recognition. It is a public celebration of love and lifelong commitment, and it is the official public acceptance of a couple. Same-sex couples have a long history of fostering neglected, abused and seriously disadvantaged children. Children often from dysfunctional families with heterosexual parents. These are often children that no one else wants. Barnardos, the Benevolent Society and the Uniting Church supported the bill, having seen firsthand how same-sex foster parents provide love and security for traumatised children. I believe that discriminatory laws reinforce social discrimination, which supports violence and abuse of lesbians and gay men. I believe that giving same-sex couples a right to marry would send a message of acceptance, and again, I think that's what Christ was about. Same-sex marriage is not a threat to the institution of marriage, it will strengthen it. Marriage is about love and commitment, it's about building a relationship, it is not about discrimination. And I believe all citizens deserve equal treatment, irrespective of gender and sexuality, and governments should remove legal discrimination. And I believe this is in the best interest of all couples and their children.
Professor Anna Marie Jagos is head of the School of Letters, Art and Media at the University of Sydney. Please welcome her.
Thanks, Simon. Good evening, all. I find myself in a pretty strange position tonight. In arguing that same-sex marriage should not be legalised, I propose a position that counters that of many people whose commitment to anti-homophobic politics and practice I passionately share. But I take up this strange and sometimes uncomfortable position to draw attention to the overwhelmingly simple, almost cartoonish way in which the issue of same-sex marriage is currently framed. In most public discussions, the issue of same-sex marriage is posed as a simple question, for or against, where to be for or against same-sex marriage is to be more or less for or against gay people. But I'm arguing tonight from an adamantly left-wing, progressive and pro-gay perspective that marriage is not a necessary good for gay people. As an institution, marriage needs lesbians and gay men more than we need marriage. Data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics indicate that across the last 20 or so years there's been a steady increase in divorce rates. A third of the marriages celebrated this weekend will end in divorce. Across the same time period, there's been a decline in marriage rates. More people divorcing, less people marrying, means that the percentage of married people in the total population is slowly shrinking. Feeling suspicious yet? The marriage that we are being invited to join in 2012 is not a flourishing, bullish opportunity. Marriage has fallen on tough times. Although most of the talk of legitimation focuses on the recognition that marriage would extend to gay men and lesbians, the truth is that lesbians and gay men are desperately needed to revive the flagging fortunes of marriage. But can we really be bothered? Since the 1961 Marriage Act, the definition of marriage in Australia is the union of a man and a woman to the exclusion of all others voluntarily entered into for life. A lot of attention has focused recently on that pesky opening phrase, the union of a man and a woman. But shouldn't we look as carefully at the rest of this almost entirely fanciful definition? To the exclusion of all others for life? This is not a very good description or definition of marriage as it exists today. At best, it is a wishful description, an idealised account of how we individually and collectively wish marriage would work. Gay men and lesbians can sneak around with the best of them, of course, but marriage, as it is legally defined, generates conditions for sexual dishonesty, disavowal and hypocrisy. There's a tendency among its proponents to represent same-sex marriage as the final chapter in the story of gay acceptance, as we have heard tonight from Clover, the last civil right, as it has been exaggeratedly called. Why should marriage continue in the 21st century to be a primary mechanism for the distribution of social recognition and privilege? Important questions of social justice, equity, and social belonging cannot get worked out across such an absurdly constrained and increasingly irrelevant category as marriage. Presenting itself as a magical solution while only distracting us from the real and unaddressed conditions of social inequity, marriage is a red herring for the 21st century pursuit of social justice.
Mark Textor is a leading Australian opinion pollster and campaign strategist. Mark Textor.
G'day. Well, I speak here today as somebody who's not engaged in alternative intimacies. The fundamental truths of same-sex marriage is that our support for it should be based on 4 clear principles: a belief in values, a belief in the inevitability and alignment with reform in Australia, the practicality of having one set of laws in Australia, and that thing that's been missing from a highly cynical debate, and indeed highly cynical remarks about marriage in Australia, is the aspiration of a good, strong life. So first to values. Many aspiring politicians are fond of using the term family values. These include self-esteem coming from partner or parental love, accomplishment such as when a parent teaches their child how to read, or when a same-sex couple buy a house together, a sense of physical and personal security that comes from home and tender contact, and happiness that comes from a sense of belonging and love. These are the things that are important to families and to partnership. And the reason that mechanism of marriage is so important is that values bind and they are lasting. How can we say we have achieved equality when we prevent loving couples from marriage on the basis of their sexuality? At the core of Australian liberalism is the belief in freedom to achieve success and contribute to our society. That means through the family unit, the parental unit and the partnership unit, however it is constituted. If one believes in the aspiration of a better life and a happier life, which Australia should produce for all its citizens, then one must get behind laws that truly enable all Australians to achieve their desire of the societal bond and affirmation of recognised marriage, not a second-class version, a B-class share for those who happen to believe or to be in same-sex partnerships. Anything else is marriage apartheid. I believe same-sex marriage is the hand that reaches to a higher aspiration for us all. How can you deny love and value? How can you divide those two notions by having two concepts for it, the A and the B class share for marriage? That is wrong and un-Australian.
Again, the results before the debate: undecided 10%, for 15% and against 75%. At the conclusion of the debate, 7.1% are undecided. For the motion, an increase of 4.6% to 19.6%, but with a huge margin against 73.3%, and therefore I declare that the motion has been lost. The debate has been that same-sex marriage should not be legalised. Please would you join with me in congratulating the negative for their win, but particularly all of our speakers, Professor Nicholas Tonti-Filippina, the Lord Mayor of Sydney Clover, Anna Marie Jardos and Mark Textor.